Today we are going to talk about work. Sounds unsexy, but we're going to talk about working on different fields and different planes, and particularly this spiritual work.
Our favorite kind of work. It's not really working.
No, but as the title implies, there's a cost. And we've alluded to that a lot on this podcast. So we may be repeating a few things, but they bear repeating. They're important.
It's funny when Kaylin just said it's not actually working, my head went to it's not working. So that's where my head is at during this podcast. I'm like, you're right, it's not
working. And Kaylin, of course, is like, it doesn't even feel like work. It's not working. Of course.
So where do we start, guys?
Where do we start? Well,
I think a good place to start is how lately, especially you, Cass, have been noticing how it's so hard to have to change hats so many times during the day. So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think with where we're at with Aligned, the founder team, and myself included, are in a space where we have to shift and mold and like transform from a shaman, in particular myself, to a CFO, to a CEO, to sometimes a CTO, and kind of back to a shaman all within 6 minutes. And that is, I enjoy doing that. I like that flip-flop, but to be able to switch from kind of those different parts of the brain and those different like activations has been kind of presenting a little bit of a challenge for me, in particular, because it's a lot. Like,
yeah,
some of those positions and some of those ideas, they flow very much when you're kind of in a very cognitive, like dot the T, or, dot the I's, cross the T's, like make sure all the attention to detail is crossed. And then other stuff is like, no, I have to go astral plane for like 25 minutes and get the next download of the next thing that we're supposed to do. And right now in our kind of current stage situation, it's been like, okay, Cass, you have a CEO meeting at 11:30, and at noon, then you have, a shamanic healing client, and then back at 12:15, you would need to chat with this development team. And then, oh yeah, you have a pitch deck that needs to be done, and you need to do all the budgets for like at 1:00. And you're like, holy shit, bleh. Like that's been kind of the famous phrase of the team right now.
Bleh. Yeah, there's a cost. And for like my perspective, it was like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, where I started, working exclusively with clients and had quit my day job. And I just had there's no way to know. It's like telling someone who's pregnant for the first time what it's like to be a parent. You can't really tell them. They just have to do it. And it's such a different kind of energy to tap in that way and work with someone from that level. And it takes a long time before, it takes a long time afterwards to kind of get back into your body. So yeah, there's a cost. That's why, a lot of spiritual healing work is, I remember when I was first getting into it, I'm like, I can't pay $150 for a Reiki session. That seems ridiculous. And it's like, that's very inexpensive for the work that someone has to do to tap into that space. So
it's costly on your body too. Just, physically, like you will have physical manifestations from working with someone and helping them clear what they're clearing. It inadvertently comes into you. And so you have to be really good about taking the time, or you'll see it physically, manifest for yourself. And then what are you going to do with it? Then you have to really work through it. So,
yeah, so I feel like that's a good avenue to kind of take this conversation to like what it looks like to get up into the spiritual realms and to tap in, and then what it looks like, to get out of and to come back into body. because I feel like even if you're not a healer, there's something that you do that you essentially have to leave the body, disassociate, and try to get, more information from a greater source. Like, I feel like that's not just a healer conversation.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Cass. Say some other ways.
Say
like
more words.
Exactly. She's
Yeah.
like, say more words.
that like, so like listeners are like, well, I'm not a healer per se, but I'm resonating with this. So
Yeah. So I feel like when you get, like, what comes to mind automatically is motherhood.
yeah.
Is like, if I were to only use kind of my thought process and my guidance and my experience in order to mother, I'd probably beat the shit out of my kids 24/7 because that's what I know. Like, just being honest, like, that was my human experience. That's what I thought motherhood and parenting was corporal kind of punishment.
Well, and let's be honest, they kind of make us want to do that anyway. Little shits.
As Kaylin sitting there with like a 5-week-old baby on her lap.
Not the 5-week-old. Not that.
On my lap, on my boob. My God.
Literally attached. But like,
literally.
so like for me, that's something in motherhood where I'm like, okay, here's my initial rash brain of rage. Here is my brain that like is my proper like conscious parenting, like better way of doing things. And here's kind of my guidance from, like what the things that I know, all my experiences, both present life and past. And like, here's how I will kind of combine those in a big salad bowl and actually serve up what it is that I'm doing in the world. That kind of makes sense.
Sure, absolutely. So, or like your creative brain versus, someone who's a very creative human being versus someone who has to like sit down and do their bills, or, like
very cognitive, someone who's like crunching numbers, an accountant, or or someone that has to, works in like the legal field and has to have really close attention to detail.
So I feel like, and I think you guys will agree, is that everyone has a flow state that is probably different, and like a skill set that is when they're in flow that's different than someone else's. So like Kaylin's flow state is generating, doing, crossing things off to-do lists. And that's where she is kind of that's where she almost goes out of body and goes to higher consciousness realms to kind of like GSD, get shit done.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So your flow state. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So after further definition, then continue with like how, what it feels like to get there, and then what it feels like to get back into your body and switch gears.
Yeah. So for me, I have no problem getting up and kind of leaving, just because that was kind of my whole childhood and training. Like, that is easy for me, but it's getting the back in. So maybe you could talk about the up and out, and I'll talk about the back and in.
What does it feel like to go up and out? That's all a matter of perspective, depending on how you flow, right?
I could speak to that too.
Yes. Yeah. So you speak to it, given that she just defined your flow state as not, you're like practical in front of your computer, but that's your flow state. So what does it feel like when you go there?
Well, what's funny is even it's not a lot different when I'm like, if say I'm like meditating or I'm like astroplaning, like it's, for me, the two are not different, like the way that I get there. And a lot of that is like setting I have to be in like not necessarily a mood, but I have to set the mood, if that makes sense. Of like, as Jade knows, like I've got to have my environment set. So whatever that is, like I've got to get that into a good organizational space. So even when I'm like, if I'm going to astroplane, like I have to like set my space. And then once my space is set, it's basically like a clearing of your mind of all the other things that are going on, and focusing in on what it is that you're working on. So if I'm, in my get shit done state, then it's literally clearing of all the other responsibilities that I have and focusing solely on the task at hand. And then then you flow, right? So, or if I want to like leave my body and astroplane again, I'm leaving everything else beside, and I'm focusing solely on what my intention is for where I want to go or what I want to do. And then it's like,
So this is fascinating to me because I'm the opposite.
you don't set an intention or clear your space.
No, I don't empty. I have to
You bring
sit
with
and
you.
absorb everything and open myself up to everything and all of like the nuances and like extra sensory pieces that people don't pick up with. And then that's how I go and get there. Like, so I don't like like it doesn't necessarily have to be still. I just have to go, okay, like open. And like I then start picking up all of the information and pieces from different sources and beings.
But you also, again, your environment is not necessarily important to you in that way because you were doing that in a hectic environment growing up. That was your escape. So it didn't matter where you were. That was how you got away from what you were doing.
Exactly. And I'm like, airplane.
Jade, tell us yours.
Yeah, exactly. Jade, where are you?
Per usual, guess. You guess what mine is going to be.
Right in the middle.
Exactly. Literally can relate to both of you. Just depends on what it is that I'm connecting to. Probably a little bit more to the allowing myself to let go. Sometimes it does, like right now, my environment is just in shambles because I have 2 sick kids at home and I'm starting to cook for Thanksgiving, and that doesn't bother me. Like I'm okay with that because I'm plugged into this right now and I'm like allowing myself to do that. I can kind of compartmentalize.
That makes total sense.
Interesting. Can you guys switch from one flow state to another though when you're in it? Like if I'm in my flow state of like getting shit done, I can literally leave my body at any time and like start channeling shit, and it's like it just comes in and out. But then once I'm back, then it's like,
See, I think I have different flow buckets. Like the finance piece and then the money piece for me is, and like the numbers and projections and very like cognitive literal pieces is a flow state of mine. Yeah. But I think it's very different from flow state of that to like ethereal beings, astral plane, a plant's energy, shamanic medicine piece. So like both of those, I can get into that space, but I think cross-pollinating them is where I have the issue of like jumping from finance to like celestial being. Yeah. So
Jade, what about you?
Yeah, it's just kind of the same for me. It's really just an allowing myself to go do what needs to be done. And I am very set off by other people. So what I mean by that is like if my client is in front of me, I can click in and engage with them because they're there and asking for my attention. If you guys are, asking for my attention, I can click in and give there. If my family is asking for my attention. So I am pretty responsive to the people in my life too, because I'm a very relational person.
That makes sense.
Yeah, until I hit a wall. You guys see it happen all the time. And it happens every day because I just I can't relate anymore. I can't be in relationship anymore. I just got to kind of shut down. So I don't know.
And what's the process for you, Cass, of getting out?
Time and space. So like for me, once I'm there, I don't want to come back and like can get in the state where, like even last night, like we were doing some sort of pitch deck for Aligned. And it was like 9:30 and I'm like falling asleep at the computer. And I'm like, wait, if I just do one more line of like financial projections and budgeting, like we'll be good to go. And I'm like, Tom's like, you need to go to bed. Like, so I think for me, it's just like, I actually have to physically like separate myself because I like going through those states and I like spending time there. And once I'm in and I'm good to go and information does not stop flowing. So I have to like very cognitively, intentionally cut myself off. That's where I think kind of the addiction and my personality comes into play too. Like I could have easily sat there last night till 2 a.m. like busting out, monthly projections until 2027.
Well, you don't have any earth in your chart naturally, right? The element of earth. So you have learned through trial, error, and just time and wisdom how to bring that element into your life. And you have a partner who has that earthiness to him and helps you kind of anchor and ground. So stopping, turning off the computer and going to bed is an element of earth. Like that's an earthy person knows when to, responsibly back away and take care of their body. So you don't have that innately in your nature. You have to bring it in.
That's interesting to me then. So what in your chart then lends to your must hit wall and become vegetable?
Noodle.
So I actually was thinking of that as I was saying it, because my entire being is focused on my relationships and the relationship I have with other people. Like it's innately in there. Like I can't help it. Like if I'm awake, I'm relating to you and I am tapped into you. And so I think that I just get tired. Like I stop being able to do it. And in order to, if I stay in front of you, I'm going to keep doing it, like giving you my energy and getting it back from you and reading you and being read by you. And it's so intense that I just have to walk away and go away.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Kaylin, where do you fall on kind of those crazy ass lines?
Well, I have the need to complete.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, fortunately, to my own demise, I will do things until it's completed, regardless of if I am tired and my body is shutting down and all the people around me are done. I will literally keep going until what I need to get done is done.
Or until she passes out.
Exactly. Or until the next thing that needs me takes me. So for example, last night it was like, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. I was like, let's take a break and let's come back together. So I'm like, okay, take a break and then we'll come back together. By the time she came back, I was already asleep.
It's true.
I was like, well, I guess we're going to start in the morning. At midnight, I woke up for a feeding and I had all these messages from her. And I'm like, well,
I know she messages me at midnight. She's like, I'm awake now. I was like, I sure as shit wasn't. Like, love you was not waiting. I gave you until like 9 and I was like, she's out cold. It's fine.
Yeah. So. But then was up at 7 and I was like, all right, let's go. Let's do it.
I'm washing my hair.
Also very important things.
It is very important. It's interesting though, because like, I think when you're in a work environment and you actually know these things about the people you're working with and even cohabitating with, or, married to, or whatever the case may be, it makes some of their quirks and ways of being a little bit more palatable.
Absolutely.
1,000%.
Jade, I feel like you could easily tap off of that and have a conversation there.
Mm-hmm. To me, it's the key. Like that's how you continue to love humanity, right? Is just recognizing that everyone's just made so differently, and it helps you to not take things personally. Mm-hmm. And, my first assumption is always like, maybe I don't understand something about them because, I can't assume that they're thinking about this the same way I am. So yeah, I think that's super valuable.
When you learn to work with it too, like I think about like in my marriage, and for me, like if I have to complete something and we need to just be done for the night, like I'll have to get to it another day. It's like, he knows that about me, that I have this need to complete. And so he knows that like I'm not going to stop myself until the job is done. And so if we're past the point of no return and I need to be done for the night, then like it is his responsibility to be like, you need to be done. It's okay that it's not going to be complete, and we'll find more space for you to complete it. Like, it's okay, but you need to be done. Because like house projects I'll do till like 2 a.m, 3 a.m, because I'm on my roll. I'm in my flow state and I'm not going to stop until it's done. And so
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, put down the hammer, Kaylin. We can't do crown molding at 2 a.m. We have children.
The paintbrush, please.
We're going to stop. Yeah. That reminds me of, so like Eric something when I learned about him, that he doesn't have any motors like you, Cass, right? He needs and delights in my motors. So he's very much like, what should we do? Where should we go? And I used to be annoyed by that, because I was like, if you love me, then you take leadership and you say, we're going this way, or we're going to do this. And you take, you go and lead with energy, until I discovered that his nature was just very much like, I will plug into your motor and I will make it go even faster, and let me do that with you. And then it's more fun, instead of waiting for him to, motor, so to speak.
You'd be waiting for a while, speaking on
Because I'd be waiting too long, and then I lose out on the fun. Because if I just take the lead at first, then he plugs in happily, and then we're just like off to the races, and that's better anyway. So
I feel like similar to like that, like last night, I should have probably tapped out around 8:30. And I was like, no, I'll push myself till 9. Cause like the first 11 pages of this deck that we're working on were super easy, super flows. I mean, it turned out beautifully. And then page whatever, 12 through 25, I was like, I need Kaylin and I story. And I was like, okay, can I do it alone? And then I like kept staring at it and like nothing was happening. And I was like, okay, let me move this slide over here. Nope, still not fixed. And then you and I got it done this morning in like what, 45 minutes as
Our call was 55 minutes and 55 seconds. We weren't working on it the whole 55 seconds, but we literally got done, and I looked at the phone and it said 55. So
you just needed a motor to plug into.
Just needed a motor to plug into.
Yeah.
Like we were sitting there too, and I was, and I just had gotten out of the shower, and we were like, I think you were feeding. Probably.
Yeah, I was feeding Kennedy while working. Yeah.
And it was just, you feed Kennedy, I sit in a towel. I'm like, by the time we were done, I'm like, Kaylin, I'm really cold. I need to go put on clothes.
Love it.
58 in my house, and I'm sitting in a wet towel because this is happening.
But it's beautiful, and it's perfect, and it's exactly what it needed to be. And yeah. So
what advice can we give the listeners about, being in the flow state, kind of being able to tap into those spiritual realms that they can actually take with them?
Well, my, as always, advice always is get to know yourself.
Yeah.
Figure out yourself. Use an astrology chart, use human design, whatever it is that works for you or resonates for you. Figure yourself out and your people that are closest to you, because it will save you a world of angst and worry and striving for things that aren't meant to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's mine.
Yeah. I think figuring out what it takes to get into what you're doing and what it takes to come out of, and how to do it in a way that serves you and serves the people around you too, I think is really important, because it's not always easy to get into your state. It's not always easy to get out, or, vice versa. So whatever it is for you, figuring out what that flow is, I think would be extremely helpful.
Yeah.
And I think like everyone needs like meditation, right? These practical tools, meditation, exercise, moving of the body, like the obvious ones, but
I think my piece is like making sure that there's ample time and space. We have a joke, considering we just finished traveling with 2 kids, a 5 and a 1-year-old, and we buffer the buffer. And then you sometimes have to buffer the buffer, and just like make sure there's extra space and time for all of the noise and the shit that could go wrong. So I feel like that's kind of my piece, is just making sure that there's windows of opportunity, so you're not, scheduling yourself every 15 minutes and with the expectation of not groundedness and kind of going in and out.
Do you mean by that, like practically speaking, like if you're literally scheduling yourself to drive somewhere with your family, then you're building in buffer time for the unexpected, and right? That's what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. But also for like meetings and for, work. And for, like today was actually a good example. Like I did a podcast this morning, and then I had 45 minutes, and then I just did another call, and then I had 45 minutes. So like I had breathing room. And I think on days that you don't provide that for yourself, and that you don't buffer yourself, and you just inundate yourself with, every 20 minutes you have a new task, meeting, commitment, family member, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's really the downfall of, what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Unless that's your personality type and that like fuels you, which who are you? We'd like to hire you.
Exactly. We have a job for you. If you would mind shooting us an email.
Exactly. Send us your resume.
Don't even bother. Just come work for us.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, as always, this has been fun, and hopefully the listeners grab some value and can work in the spiritual realms and their flow state a little bit better.